Welcome everybody to our business survey webinar. We will be sharing the latest results, the results from our latest business survey. Just to kick us off, I'll just start with a karakia to welcome us all and put us in the mood for this kaupapa this afternoon. So, ko ranganui e tu iho nei, ko papatuanuku e tāko te ake nei. Arahina mai mātou, I roto I o koroa auha, mō ake tonu, tihei moriora. So yeah, welcome. Thanks everyone for joining us. Just a few housekeeping things as before we kick into the sharing the survey results. So first of all, we do have the chat box function at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to use that chat box. This is where you can interact with other attendees in the webinar. And also if you'd like to start with, please feel free to pop your name in and your organisation if you want to introduce yourself to others who are on the webinar. There's also the Q&A function. So this is where if you have any questions for us, please note those questions in there and we will do our best if we have time to answer as many of those as we possibly can. So we'll move into the presentation in a minute. Just before we do that, I'll just make sure that everyone knows who we are. So I'm Justine Gilliland, Chief Executive of Ventures Taranaki, and with me I've got Anne Probert, who's our General Manager of Regional Strategy and Sectors and who undertakes these surveys and runs them and has been doing for quite a time. So if you're not aware, these surveys are ones that we've been running for 20 years at Ventures Taranaki, so we have got quite a good data set to draw on and compare these latest results. I'm just going to begin now to share our screen and start to work through the survey results. Hopefully this works. Here we are. Oh, I need to go there. Apologies everybody, we're just, there we go. All right, the technology has worked. Okay, so kicking off into this survey, essentially what we've been doing over the last 20 years is doing this survey in order to monitor the economic confidence that Taranaki enterprises have about our regional economy, about New Zealand's economy, and also to highlight any key business issues or understand any concerns. As I mentioned, we have been doing this for 20 years, every 6 months, and this latest one was set to over 1,700 enterprises, and we do this to ensure that we've got a cross-section of industry type, location and size right across our region. The survey has a bunch of standard questions, obviously, so that we can benchmark over those 20 years, and every time we do a special topic. And this time, clearly, COVID-19 impacts and learnings was a very obvious topic that we wanted to pick. And in terms of timing, we undertook the survey just as we all moved to alert level 1. So just to give you all that context of when people were answering these questions. So in terms of the economic conditions or Taranaki Enterprises' view of the New Zealand economic outlook for the next 12 months, basically the majority of respondents don't have a very positive view, which is not surprising, obviously, and that 50% are expecting it to deteriorate.
We should also say that all these slides will be made available, so after the survey, so you don't need to take any minutes or notes.
Thank you, Anne. Yes. Yes, so these will be available on our website, and we can also send them out. And we're also recording this webinar for later. In terms of what this compares to compared to previous surveys, you can see that there is a massive sharp increase in that view that the economic outlook will deteriorate, so that 51% of respondents compared to 22% previously. And that you can see that for the last probably, at least 10 years, that the red line in the bottom hasn't been that different There's been some spikes, but not compared to this spike right now. And obviously the last big spike was at the time of the GFC. I'm just going to hand over to Anne now, who's going to take us through more of the sentiments in terms of the industry outlooks and also getting into the regional information.
So this question asks very similar to the previous question, but it's really from the point of view of your own industry perspective. So for example, if you're in the construction industry, you'll be looking at the next 12 months, what does it look like for my industry? I'm not sure if you can see this line, but you can see once again a similar sort of pattern with confidence deteriorating somewhat, with the red line going up, and shift from the status quo downwards as well. We asked for the first time what the outlook for the Taranaki economy would be. And as you can see, quite mixed results. Almost 40% of respondents saw conditions within the region deteriorating in the next 12 months. Almost 29% anticipated improvement, and the balance remained the same. But equally, quite a number also of uncertainty coming through as well in these results.
And interestingly, obviously, that's slightly more positive than what people felt for the national economy.
And just reaffirming what Justine's just highlighted here, you can compare the national results, own industry and Taranaki in the green, and you can see here more of a pessimistic outlook on the national scene, slightly more optimistic or less deterioration within the own industry, and Taranaki somewhere in between. So looking out for sales over the next six months, once again you can see the red line here for deterioration creeping in somewhat, those expecting the outlook to improve coming down, but equally this purple line at the bottom is uncertainty, so uncertainty element coming through in the sales outlook as well. We provided a predetermined list for people to indicate the factors that they believe have the largest impact on their enterprise moving forward. You can see the significance of the impact of COVID-19 here as the factor with the most impact. Declining market also of concern. There's a number here in the middle that you could really lump together as the cost of business, how that impacts, but equally the weather is an impact on business here, quite close up in that list of factors impacting business as well. Some feedback and comments. As you can see, people wrote on a range of matters which you can read at your leisure, but concern about travel and borders, how that impacts on business, the whole confidence that's coming through about the outlook at the moment, looking ahead, but equally how that has changed the landscape moving ahead, including the opportunity for new opportunities and new ways of doing business. In terms of what's the employment outlook looking ahead, it's fair to say that those looking to perhaps grow staff numbers has contracted, but those aiming to at least hold firm in employment numbers has increased. In terms of skill shortages or difficulties getting the type of people for your enterprise, the percentage indicating skill shortages or no skill shortages has increased, and whether there is a skill shortage has declined. So clearly a greater potential availability of skilled people in the workforce coming through. And further comments on that you can read at your leisure.
So turning now to our special topic, which was specifically focused on COVID-19 impacts and learnings.
So the first question we really asked is, how would you rank New Zealand and also the region in terms of our performance or our handling of the COVID-19 pandemic? And scores for both were really very close, but pretty much a 4 out of 5 in terms of response concerning the lockdown and information and support that was made available. In terms of how the experience has impacted on enterprise, you can see that quite a majority anticipate looking ahead that there will be significant setbacks, but they are aiming to recover and stay in business moving forward. And that compares here with maybe this number here, 8.2%, which is feedback from businesses here that they are really devastated and unsure if they will continue. Here you can see in the centre those that believe there will be some setbacks, but they'll be back to normal relatively soon, and those who anticipate they've been not too badly impacted from the experience. Top 3 areas impacted by COVID-19 were pretty clear cut. Revenue impacts here, stress and anxiety, and cash flow difficulties. Of those moving to remote working, around 48% shifted to remote or virtual working during the alerts 4 and 3. Some didn't, potentially because of the nature of their business, and the remaining percentages, that really reflects those who were either essential workers or some people were working from home anyway, maybe self-employed people. Of those who did shift to remote working, it was interesting to ask, how did the systems that you had in place, were they able to get into remote working relatively smartly? And around 40% indicated that it went quite smoothly, quite a low impact. But equally, some percentages in here, grouping in here, had some impact. It was some moderate impact or quite a major exercise to set up and work remotely from various locations, which weren't their normal operating situation. And of course, having your system set up is one thing, but it's how to, as organisations, as people, what has that experience been like? And quite a number of different responses on that. For some, it was an easily adaptable process. For others, it was very much a learning experience. And for others, it was quite a major shift from a people point of view in terms of getting that in place.
Just some
further comments there. We also asked, in terms of remote working, is that an area which you'll likely anticipate will continue within your organisation? Just under 55% indicated no, it wouldn't be, and around 18% said they would certainly look at that as an option for staff. And here's some of the feedback. I think it would be fair to say that those looking at it as an option weren't tending to see it as being a full-scale shift back to remote offering, but it may be something they could look at for some days a week with their teams. In terms of coming back to operations, in terms of opening the doors as we moved to lockdown to level 1, some of the biggest challenges indicated that social distancing, for example, was quite an area of focus, followed by how do you put in place areas like client or customer tracking. Other areas that were a challenge included how do you get up and running in terms of giving travel restrictions, in terms of product availability, and in terms of managing, you know, some of the changes and the stress amongst your own team. So looking ahead over the next 3 to 6 months, what are the ongoing impacts? Quite a lot of uncertainty actually as we look ahead. So 43% indicated they weren't really sure yet. Quite a number view the ongoing effort. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. Although a number of businesses also indicated that, you know, with change and challenge also comes opportunity. So a number are looking positively what this may bring for the future as well. We also asked some of the hard questions in terms of workforce numbers, and around 45% of those who responded are hoping or anticipating there'll be no change in their current workforce numbers. But there's quite a lot of uncertainty. Others are looking to potentially increase workforce. There are some, however, who indicated they're anticipating reducing workforce numbers, and these are some of the percentages by which there could be some potential retrenchment. This is a potential retrenchment, for example, by maybe around 10% of their work team, 25%, 50%, etc. But it's positive to see that a number of, quite the majority of businesses at the moment are really hoping or anticipating to hold firm in business numbers, employment numbers. There's also been the experience of when doors opened, the rush of initial work orders or the catch-up experience. Around 38% of businesses said they experienced an initial rush of orders to catch up with servicing other clients or customers. But the question is this a sustained experience, or is this just an initial rush which will then ease off as normality, or whatever shape that is, continues? We also asked, has COVID created some new commercial opportunities? And a number of businesses, as you can see here, are certainly looking at what change and opportunity brings looking ahead. Also asked about border restrictions and how that has impacted operations, whether directly or indirectly. And as you can see, the results are quite split between those who see that the border restrictions haven't impacted as opposed to those here who have. Also a range of learnings and what do we pull out of this experience looking ahead. And also, so some of the feedback, and we can put this up to be shared with people, is that there's certainly been some options that will be looked at in terms of digital selling, how you conduct meetings, for example, the experience of using Zoom and Microsoft Teams, etc. Is that a practice to continue? And also, has that rethought businesses in terms of will they maintain the amount of travel that they do, whether some other options, remote options for connecting are experiences they may continue. Clearly, in terms of rethinking some of your working systems, for example, it's been, as we mentioned, a useful test bed for remote working. And also, the experience has perhaps made businesses think a bit more in terms of preparedness generally, in terms of when a shock like this happens again. Some of the changes and considerations may also be quite enduring and leaves an inevitable mark, I guess, on all of us. Certainly some thought in terms of supporting local and the mindset towards that. As we mentioned, a bit more readiness in terms of the acceptance of some non-traditional working practices, such as remote working. Perhaps a greater focus on innovation and R&D and being open to change and new trends. Once again, that thought about being more self-sufficient. And also maybe this experience has given us food for thought in terms of values and maybe reaffirming what is important, and maybe that flows through not only with customers, but maybe personally within your organisations as well.
Right, so turning, we thought useful to also have a look ahead and what's been going on both during COVID in terms of the experience that we've seen at Venture Taranaki with people, with our clients and the enterprise support that we have offered. So since mid-March, we've had about 600 businesses approaching us for enterprise support. And as we've talked about, basically over 70% of enterprises who we surveyed during lockdown were extremely or very concerned about the impact of COVID on their business. And also 80% of enterprises had access to the government's wage or leave subsidy scheme. And the little chart on the right hand shows a breakdown of the areas that people have sought advice from us around. So you can see the number one area being financial, but quite a few as well being on digital strategy and business continuity. In terms of what Venture Taranaki support, the support that we offered, so we had 2 COVID-19 programs running, a local fund that we set up, designed and set up very quickly in conjunction with councils and with nearly in the end, I think up 60 partner professional services firms who gave their time, matched our funding with their time for free, which was absolutely amazing support. And so we, through those 2 funds, we were able to provide nearly $700,000 worth of funding and support over well over 600 enterprises with advice and support. And then turning to look ahead, we've been doing work on what's called the economic pillar for the region under our regional recovery plan that's being led at a regional level. The regional recovery plan has 3 other pillars as well as the economic pillar, so social, iwi and rural. In terms of the economic pillar, what we're really doing here is trying to guide and focus our efforts as a region from basically May 2020 through till mid-2023. And how we created this was also about looking at all of the actions that sit in Taparoa and Taranaki 2050 and pulling that through based on a COVID-19 impact framework and figuring out the areas for focus for those kind of that shorter term 2 to 3 year window. And so the little table at the bottom shows, I guess, the essence of this tactical plan, where we've essentially got 3 core pillars around creating smart, connected communities and enterprises. So this is thinking about skills, different ways of working, digital platforms, and enablement and innovation, but also particularly a very strong focus on entrepreneurship. So that's entrepreneurship in larger firms, as well as new potential, or entrepreneurship in new and existing firms, existing small and large enterprises, and entrepreneurship in those newer startup spaces. And so that's a really, really important focus because we want our enterprises to remain obviously viable and creating jobs. The next pillar is food and fibre value acceleration. So fortuitously, and you know that Taranaki has a strong food sector, and that's been of real benefit through this time because the food sector has been less impacted by COVID-19. And so it's really the opportunity to accelerate value out of that sector and take advantage of our amazing climatic conditions and fertile soils, but also innovation, value add, and particularly a focus on sustainability and regenerative practices. A third pillar there around advancing the energy transition. So this is thinking about low emission energy, for example, the establishment and the work that will occur under the National New Energy Development Centre, just as one example. And then underpinning those 3 pillars is a really important foundation around vibrancy, and this is around having a really vibrant arts and creative, hospitality and visitor sectors, because these sectors all really attract and support investment in our region. They support people wanting to live and work and invest and create in our region. And then either end, there are bookends around what we call the ramp-up phase, which is thinking about those shovel-ready projects with the government funding, or existing projects that we have already approved for the region, such as the hospital redevelopment, which are really critical. And then on the other end, looking at Better Tomorrow, which is about what might be kind of major disruptive projects with high value that might be able to be achieved that result in a step change. So that's the sort of economic focus plan for the next 2 to 3 years, and there's a whole range of actions that will sit under that. So thank you very much everyone for joining us, and it's really now the opportunity to answer any questions that people might have. So I've just stopped sharing the screen and we'll just check so we've got a question here. In many of the countries I work, virtual contact, even email, is inferior to face-to-face contact. So yeah, I think everyone agrees with that, and you can see that in some ways, you know, with the amount of social interaction that has happened since people have come out of lockdown, and the desire for people to really reconnect. And also in the responses in the survey, you would have seen that there were quite a few comments there about the importance of that working together, and that yes, whilst there were some benefits from working remotely during lockdown, there were other things that people found challenging, or that didn't mean it was I guess worthwhile as a permanent move, yeah, depending on the nature of the enterprise. I will just, apologies, my mouse is not working very well. Oops. And so looking at the Q&A, that's the only question that we've had. So unless there's anything that anyone is rapidly typing away, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. As we said, we'll send these slides out to everybody who's registered, and we will also be publishing this information on our website, and this webinar has been recorded as well if anyone wants to relook at it or share it. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and I'll just close us with a karakia. Unihia, unihia, unihia ki te uru tapunui, kia wātea, kia mana, te tanana, te wairua i te ara takutu. Koia rā e rongo, whakaare ake ki rongo, kia wātea, aira, kua wātea, hau, pamarani. Ka kite.